We're going to start on Chapter 11, displaying and annotating section views, which dovetails nicely into our Chapter 10 on section views where we first learned about them. It's going to be in a variety of chunks. We're going to first learn about the styles that make up sections, how make them look how they do, then the section labels, the labeling of them. Onto the third part, which is controlling a corridor section with the CodeSet styles and also applying labels to those CodeSet styles. So this is sections of corridors essentially. And after that we'll learn about section view styles. So the styles of the views that the sections lay on, much like profile views and profiles. Which leads us to the section view bands, which will be on the bottom of the section views that give us certain data, much like profile views. On the bottom of the section view, like offsets and elevations and various things like that. And then after that, we're going to learn more about group plot styles, how the section views plot in the end, and lastly, creating section view labels for the section views themselves. So let's get on with it onto page 208. Applying section styles. So we'll open our applying section styles DWG, which I have going here in order. And real quick before we get started, you know, the fact of the matter is the methods that you use to stylize and annotate the sections and section views are very similar to the ways we use for profiles and profile views. Okay, so think of them very much similar to what we learned back in chapters 7 and 8. Okay, another difference is that section views are typically created in bulk amounts, so a variety of them, a bunch of them in quantities. Unlike profile views, they kind of stay along one alignment, right, parallel with it. Section views run perpendicular to set alignments in many different views as they slice how many different times into it. So think of them very similarly. And on 208 we talk a little bit about sections. They are derived from surfaces. They're cut from surfaces. They can also be thought as the same as surface profiles. Okay, so we go in here. This is a section, this dashed red line that is cutting into the existing ground. But later we have corridor sections, which are cuts of the corridor, like this one here. So I have a cut of a corridor that is from the corridor section, and it has its style of its code set. It looks a certain way, and they have their own styles, and they correspond to the corridor. So think about, we're going to see a lot of that. We have a section and we have a corridor section here on top of each other. So the section styles of either one of these change their appearance. This one's red and dashed, this one's blue and hollow. That's the section style, how they look. So with that, let's start with exercise 1.1 on 208, and we're going to go way over here to these section views in this case, and we're going to add some things to them. I'm in the wrong drawing. I'm in the 8th part. Let me go back to the applying section styles. They're all set up very similar, and we're back to the one viewport method where we're just in a top view, and it's top view looking down. We're no longer in the 3 viewports anymore at the moment, but we have a little probably faster action because of that for AutoCAD to handle. So we're going to investigate the section views here. Show corridor section, existing ground surface, and a rock section. As we can see, there's 3 different entities on these section views. So the lowest section at 850, let's go to it, and let's click on the section view and right click section properties. I'm going to do the right click method this time, and we're going to go to object style, which is down here. Okay, and we're going to change this section view to sorry, this is the section view, so quick learning lesson. I'm in the section view styles. I want to go to the section styles. So in order to get that correct, let's restart this. So if I click the section view, I did okay there. I have options in my contextual ribbons, and I have my right click options as usual with Civil 3D objects. But in this case, we can go to the section properties of the cuts in here, not the section view properties. Kind of confusing. If you pick on this, you don't really have that here. just the section view. So we'll go to section properties here, and it wants us to click which section we're going to edit. In this case, I'm going to pick this section on station 850, the rock section, and I'm going to pick rock here. I'm going to pick OK. And now it appears as a gray dash, or it's given gray dash line. And let's do the same thing. Let's try this one here, this section, which is the existing ground. Let's go to, I can click it this way and say edit section style instead of clicking the view and going to it like this. If I click the section view, I got to go to the correct one, which is section properties, not section view properties. It's a little confusing. Try that one more time, and I'll open that up. Okay, we got to pick it. We're picking it, and we're going to go to existing ground and OK. Escape, and let's repeat the previous two steps for the section that appears above the rock layer on existing ground, which we did. We'll move on to the section at 9+00, and I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to go to section view properties right here, and we're going to right click, or I'm just going to click this section here. I'm doing a little bit different than the book, but it's doing the same thing, and I'm going to click rock to change the object of that section style. There we go. And I'll hit escape to release that function. Let's continue on, and we're going to go to the one above at 9+25 section view. Let's click the section view again. And in this case, we can go to the change section property here again. Well, we got to click the right section we want to change. In this case, we want to change the EG once again to its proper, and then the rock. We'll do the EG first. We'll change its section view style to existing ground. Hit OK. Let's do that again. Section view. Hit OK. And then we'll hit escape. So now we have the properly displaying sections on all three of the existing ground and the rock sections. I missed one here. We could do that one here by just clicking the section itself and clicking the section properties and existing ground. There we go. So that's the end of that part of Chapter 11. We're going to go on to applying section labels on page 210. And there's different types of labels. We got major offset labels at major intervals. We have minor offset labels, which go in this direction, in the x-axis. Minors that they are created in smaller increments. We have segment labels. They can label anything from grade of something, slope, a length of it, or the properties of the segments. And then we have grade break labels, where we have a station offset and other grade break things. We'll see that in 11 too. So let's go into applying section labels here. Okay. So continuing on with exercise 11.2, we're learning about applying section labels, and we're going to go to the lowest section view and click edit section views in the labels, what it says on page 210, which will be these section views over here still. It's a little unclear on that, but it shows you a picture on 212, not these multiple section views up here. Let's stay with these, and we're going to the lowest section view, which is to the south here, and we're going to click on the rock section, which is this section right here, any way you can with your cursor. And as you see in properties,
1 second, let me turn on my highlight pen. There we go. And I have the rock section selected. You can see it's a section in my AutoCAD general properties, rock, and the name rock, its layers and all of its properties, of course, and it has more data down here, FYI. And we could go multiple ways, but we're going to go to the section labels. So once we click the section, we have multiple options. I have a section plane here. This is newer, not in 2016 necessarily as far as I remember, but we have our section contextual ribbon up here, which is our main heavy hitter of our options we've been learning about between section view properties, sampling more sources onto the section views, section properties itself, which we're about to get into, and then we're going to learn more about labels. So we're going to click, in this case, one way to get to labels is to edit section labels. And a dialog box will come up. So for the type of label, as we've learned, this is very similar to other things as we've seen with alignments, which come in label groups, with profiles, which also come in label groups to label them on top of a profile view. In this case, sections, which will be on top of section views. So think of them very similar to that, which they are, how they're set up in Civil 3D. We're going to go to grade breaks for the option, and we're going to go to grade break label style. We're going to choose rock here, which, interesting enough, I don't have. Let me check on that in a minute. I think I found my issue. I am in the wrong drawing, so that could easily happen. Now, if I go to my next drawing, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. We'll get back to where we were at. All right, I'm back, and I'm in the same section view. I'm going to pick the section. I'm going to get my multiple contextual ribbons. Like I said, I think this section plane, I forget which version it came in, but I don't believe it was in earlier versions of Civil 3D, but I'm in 2022, the latest and greatest as of today. We'll go to section rock, and I'm going to start with edit section labels again. Not bad to practice twice, even for myself, right? We'll go to grade breaks, and we should have a rock one in here. Yes, we do. So in the other file, it did not. This is one we want. Excuse me. And we're going to click add, and all of our options of that given label and style come up. Okay. And for dim anchor opt, it says, okay, there's a lot of deeper options in here. These get pretty deep in how the label performs, how it looks, what it does. We're going to go into here, and we're going to say graph view bottom. So this changes where the labeling will occur. And we're going to click OK just to see what's going on with this. So in step 3, we adjusted 2 settings relating to anchors. The concept of anchors basically is unique to certain types of labels that appear in section views and profile views. When you compose a label, as I'm reading mostly verbatim from the book here, certain key points can be located at the anchor point whose location will be determined at the time the label is applied. It gives you some additional control over the placement of the labels. For example, in the previous steps we just did, you specified that the labels should be aligned at the bottom, which they are here. So these labels come in with a certain alignment with respect to the bottom. There's a lot more to it than that, but we messed with, it was called the dim anchor opt setting. We could have messed with the dim anchor val setting. It is the offset from the anchor point. So it says how far off this point we have an offset, which enables you to fine tune the position of this label, for example, and even more. So like any labels, they come in. These ones are label groups. So they move together. As you see, when I picked one, they all get selected. Similar to profile labels, similar to alignment labels, they come in a label group. So when I select them, like profile labels and alignment group labels, they come in as section grade break label group. You have to do the same, hold control and left data click to just get one to manipulate it, which they have their own drag states and various things in the label style. We're used to seeing that a lot in all Civil 3D dynamic labels, right? Especially by this point in the learning. So let's hit escape. So we have everything cleared from our selection set, and let me select one of the labels. Go back to that again. The whole label group is selected. And we're going to go to edit label group in the ribbon, the contextual ribbon that comes up. We pick the noun and we get the verb, right? The action. Here we go. And this will open up and we have a weeding column. It wants us to change the value to 5. So weeding basically in short in other areas of Civil 3D, it says it's like picking weeds in a garden. You're picking out things, entities to make it more fine-tuned. So if you have 100 vertices in a thick polyline, you weed it out to say like 5 efficient ones. We'll hit enter on that. And let's take a look at this. It weeds it to every 5. So more labels appear because the weeding setting allows the space between the labels to be as small as 5 feet. That's essentially what happened, rather than 100 feet, which we just had as our default weeding setting. So the minimum, it can go down to 5 feet. On its basically is going to certain points of intersection on this rock section, cross section cut. So we're going to do the same thing in the other two views basically. This just gives you more practice on station 9 plus 00 and 9 plus 50. So if you select the section, and there's other ways you can get to it, like I've said before, you can get to it in the Annotate tab. Turned on mobile viewer by accident, hold tight. You can also go to the Annotate tab. Bear with me, my CAD's a little slow. I have a lot of resources going with all these files and other programs. So if we go to the Annotate tab, like I've said before, you could permanently do the add labels here. You can pull down and the cascading effect of everything comes and shows here. In this case, you would be doing section views, which is right here. And we're doing various ones of that we're doing right now. We're doing grade ones. You can also, as I've said in other chapters, with any Civil 3D label of Civil 3D objects, you can turn on the more permanent dialog box that will come up. And I prefer this method oftentimes to most methods in that it brings up the dialog box and it stays permanent. If I can get it to show, there it is. And you have all your Civil 3D labels options here. And of course, we've gone through lines and curves a little bit, alignments, we're going to do parcels, we're going to do section views. So we're going through many of these Civil 3D things to annotate. And we have some options here. So same way to get to it. Just a review on that. Can't emphasize it enough because it comes in really handy with Civil 3D if you're bouncing between entities especially. But in this case, let's pick the rock section. Let's go to the contextual ribbon on the top here. Sorry, my cursor is just lagging. And we'll go to section rock. We're just going to add section view labels to these as well. And I won't do 9 plus 50. You get the point after this one. Just to keep the video rolling, we're going to add grade breaks and we'll do rocks. Maybe let's just do another one just to see what it looks like. We'll do weeding of 2 feet. Let's change this to 3 just to see what it looks like. Hit OK. We have a pile of them. So a lot more grade breaks on this one, obviously. A lot more going on. We could turn down the annotation just so you can get a better look at it for a moment. To 1 to 10 for a moment. There we go. So we're going to move on to page 213 here in a sec. Like I said, we learned about label sets in chapters 6 and 8 when we dealt with alignments and profile labels. This is the same thing. We have a set like this, and I'm checking ahead a little bit. We do a little bit of that in this chapter, not much. So like that, if we go to edit section labels, in this case I already have them made, I can go to them this way by clicking them and doing a right click, showing another option of course. You can add more stuff here, like we'll do major offsets for example here. And you can save this label set as whatever, just like we've done in the past. I'll say just mine, right? And I can now import it to another label when I don't have it on another section view. Of course, this one's done, but label sets, importing, saving work the same, okay? So we're going to move on to page 213, and we're going to talk about CodeSet Styles. So CodeSet Style, it's a style and appearance of a corridor section. So this being your corridor section here, and while I'm talking about them, this is a regular section of just a surface of a straight line cut right through it, perpendicular to the alignment. This is the cut through the corridor and its assemblies within. I'm going to go further by going to this while I'm talking about them. So CodeSet styles have a lot going on. It does a long explanation on 213. I'll sift through a little bit, and it's best to break it down and say a corridor section is as an assembly. So it's taking a cut through an assembly, and I'm in drawing 3 applying CodeSet styles. This is an assembly, right? It's cut, it's showing what an assembly being. These are assemblies here, which is this is the assembly. This is the sub-assemblies that make it over here, right? And it has certain annotations on it to help you figure out what's going on. And they look a little bit similar. This has a little bit of vertical exaggeration to it, which thickens the elevation or z dimension, right? But it's the same general principle. It stretches it, vertically exaggerates the y-axis, the elevation. That happens a lot in section views like profile views, okay? Not always. So, for example, if I do distance, I'm going to type in di for distance, and I'm going to do the distance from, let me turn on my running O snaps. By just turning them on, I'm pretty sure I have endpoint on. Yes, I do. And I'm going to do distance again. Right click, repeat the command. This is one handy trick. Let me check this. Say that distance is 10 feet. So as you see graphically, it's 10 feet, but on the labels, it's 2 feet. So this has a vertical exaggeration. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Vertical stretch or vertical exaggeration of 5. So similar to profile views, right? A little review there. But these CodeSet styles, think of these as assemblies. They have smaller parts inside of them called subassemblies. So in subassemblies, even within them, it's like breaking the atom a little bit, right? They have within them points, links, and shapes. So basically the points, each one of these, the links, which link point to point, that in the end form a polygon, or as Civil 3D calls it, a shape. So they work together hand in hand, and they have at least one code assigned to them. And this line string of text is the key to how a code set style works. So best example is one code that is used quite often is pave. So this basic lane transition assembly, for example, in your corridor uses a rectangular shape to represent the lane, and the pave code inside of it is assigned to this shape as a property of the subassembly. So it's shown as pavement, and it's when we do quantities later, this is a pavement. It has a pavement code inside of it, inside of the shape. Shapes have styles, just like all other Civil 3D objects. So the points, lines, points, links make shapes, and these shapes have their own styles too and their own appearances. These subassemblies have their own appearances, and these corridor sections have their own appearances with respect to the code set style. So the shapes, in this example, you create a shape that it's called hatch pavement, that displays the outline of the shape and fills it with a dot hatch to represent the pavement material. Another shape, could be basic pavement, they say in the book, which shows it as an outline, for example, with no hatching, much more like these code set styles of these section corridor sections. They look different, see? And they produce the code set style changed, produces a different appearance on the section corridor. So, or the corridor section, I keep getting those backwards. So even in a simple assembly, the number of codes get crazy, and you apply a different style to each code visually to differentiate, let's say, pavement from curbing from sidewalks. So these ones have different hatching or colors, so you can see the difference between the curb and the side and the lane. That's one reason you might do that. There might be many different dozens of matchups between style and code in this CodeSet Styles. So we're going to learn more about that. We can click on it. We're going to get into it in the next bit here in this example, applying different CodeSet styles. So you see a good picture on 214 with different appearances of CodeSet styles, which produce quickly, they change the appearance essentially of this corridor section. So let's go to page 214, talking about CodeSet styles. And so you can see this picture is a good representation of quickly changing between CodeSet styles in this corridor section. So we have, this one's called basic CodeSet style, this one's called a detailed CodeSet style. That would be good enough to, say, display to show really defined characteristics of the materials within the assembly. That's a perfect example of why you would have maybe a basic one and maybe a more detailed one when you need it. So we'll go back to 11.3, applying CodeSet styles here. Minimize this. Once again, we'll go to station 8 plus 50 section, and we'll click on the corridor section it wants us to do to start, which is fine. And so we get an option. We look for section properties in the ribbon, which, if you look up on the ribbon, we haven't been to it yet, but it's next to sample more sources. Let's click it. We're not going to edit the CodeSet style. That would change, the possible hatching of the subassembly inside of it. We're going to go to section properties. In the information tab, let's just go down to change the object style to road sections, for example. And I think it just wants this one, but now we could go to the one with top highlighted. So let's try this one. So these are all different styles of how the hatching of this corridor section will look, right? Hit OK. There we got more of a basic skeleton look. In the lower right corner of the screen, let's go to, I call it the hamburger button, the customization button. It's a 3-bar hamburger button. And it wants us to make sure that line weight's turned on. As you can see, and this is good to know in general with AutoCAD, I call them the tray items and the customization hamburger button. I just turn them all on. The most important one it wants on is line weight for this exercise. So the line weight thicknesses, you can toggle them on and off. So I'll show you what that means here in a second. I have it on in the hamburger button. It should show here as a graphic. Here it's on. Now it's off. So it shows graphically thickness of lines or not. We'll turn it on. Like all these icons, they turn a shade or a blue color. In this case, in 2022, they turn white highlighted. Let's click it again, and I'm going to go to the corridor section. Let's change it here to, in the properties as well, like we've been getting used to. We're going to change it to presentation in this case. And now it has its hatching, its patterns. It's looking like a live section view, right? And we'll hit escape to clear our previous selection set. And we'll zoom out and pan to the north where the sheets of the section views are located, up here. Click one of the section views. And now I'm going to get my contextual ribbons for section views. I just got the one selected, but I want to go to the group properties. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to open up the section view group properties. Right here, we have our styles. You can change how they plot, but we're going to start with the group properties, which is this icon, same. Which brings up a whole new dialog box, new to us as of now. And I'm going to expand it a little bit. In this case, we see our sections cut into all these views in this multiple views. In these multiple views, we have E.G. Rock and Jordan Court, which, as by this icon, it shows it is a corridor section. These are regular sections just on surfaces. That's the difference there. And in the sections, we're in the sections tab. We confirmed. We'll go to the style column. And we're going to change the style for Jordan Court here, all across the board, to presentation, the fancy, schmancy one we just did. And we'll hit OK to accept that. And it's going to take a minute to chug, but they'll repopulate their section views. Most notably, we changed the CodeSet style of all the corridor sections for Jordan Court, which we have sampled here. So we have much more detailed looking roads in the section view sense in all instances. So that's the end of that one, showing you some group properties and the intro to CodeSet Styles. We'll go to 11.4, which involves, I'm going to start going to it now, labeling with CodeSet Styles. So CodeSet Styles are super effective, at assigning styles of how sections look in this case, based on the point linking shape codes inside of them. But they can also be used to apply labels to corridor sections as well. And just with these styles, as we're used to seeing with labels, they have their own appearances and we can edit them. But the codes within the CodeSet styles, they're the key to automating the placement of the labels. So we'll get into that here soon. So the codes within these assemblies say where things link and touch. Well, that's where a lot of the labels are going to populate to quickly, automatedly, in the sort of right location, and they're going to stay dynamic and move when your design changes. So let's click once again on the corridor section here in 850 at the bottom, as we've been doing most of the chapter. And we're going to click the corridor section and we're going to change the object style to design with labels. So we can do it in here as well. I'm just kind of giving you a palette of both just to get that across like all chapters. And this is the same thing, same hatching, but it adds the labels and the codes inside of these subassemblies really promote that. They are the ones that really drive that. Okay. As you can see, I have labels for the objects, the slopes of them, the cross slopes, and the embankment or catch slopes back to existing earth in the offset. Okay. I'm going to hit escape to clear my selection set of anything. And I'm going to go and open the tool palettes window. If you don't remember where that is, the tool palettes is here in the home tab. If you don't have it open, I like to dock it over here once I have it opened. And it's over here. It has all kinds of tabs on the side with different assemblies. And let's see where it wants us to go. So we're going to go to our home base that we've been used to, just the basic subassemblies. And we're going to go to the basic lane transition. I'm going to select it. And in this case, so I have a slight compatibility issue with Civil 3D 2022 and 2019, and we'll go through that in a second. It's not that important, but it was curious to me. We basically were going to one of these assemblies. We're going to basic lane transition, and I can go to properties here. There's no help on the right click. Different versions of Civil 3D it is there, so it says the tool is not registered properly. You can only edit the basic properties, and that's a difference in versions of Civil 3D. So you will be able to see the tool palette or the properties, which just says its name and description, and that's fine. But if I open the same file and I have Civil 3D 2019 installed as well, which is very similar, but some subtle differences in the programming. If I go to the same tool palette over here on my right hand side, and I go to basic lane transition, I have a whole cadre of different options that you didn't see in Civil 3D 2022. So don't get frustrated by that, but there might be another way to get to this same thing in 2022, but it's a little out of the scope of need for this book. We'll go to help here, which brings us up to a help icon, and it brings us probably right to this exact assembly. You have to have an online connection, of course. It says all the deep details of learning you need to know about this assembly, which is helpful if you're trying to research it, figure out how to change options, like the offset here. The width is easy, in depth it makes sense. It's the width and depth and the slope, but it also down here more further, like on page 216, gives you the real deep description of the codes. So the codes that make it up inside of it, this is the key to this area. P1, P2, P3, P4 make the whole shape, S1. And it's basically just fancy ways of giving mathematical definitions of coding to this subassembly, but it gives you very specific if you need to drill down into this. This is the crown for code for crown. ETW P2 is edge of traveled way and finished grade. In this description, code link point link and code or point link and shape is the shorthand. The codes are a little longer description in the programming of AutoCAD or Civil 3D, and the description gives the full description here, right? So L3 below is below, it's the sub base below the built up materials. L1 is the finished grade surface. That's the top of your finished grade. So it gives you really good stuff in here on every subassembly within your tool palette possible. If you got really deep into CAD management or designing roads, this could be very helpful to helping you understand parameters you can change and the point codes that drive these. Okay, so I'm going to go back to 2022 to keep on. Let's go to number 4. So just slight differences between versions is all. And now that we have that shown, let's just go back to clicking the corridor section, 8+50. We have our contextual ribbon comes up. And we're going to go to edit CodeSet Style now, which is yet another thing we are, or excuse me, it is edit CodeSet Style, yes. This is interesting. When I hovered on it, a little bit of a glitch here. It said CodeSet Style, but here in the label of the icon on the ribbon, it said Edit Code Labels. Kind of weird. That's kind of different things, but just kind of curious on that. And on the Codes tab, I think it's just a small glitch, not a big one, but seems to be. Expand the point section, and you can see these same things within it too, within the point of this one subassembly. It says we're locating the point and we want to go to one specific one called crown. This is the one point in the middle of the road. That's the crown of the road. We're getting pretty deep in the matrix now, and we're going to click the icon to the right of none in the label style column, which is right here. And we're going to change some of this. We're going to crown elevation. And we're going to hit OK. So it's going to add a CodeSet style related labels to all. So let's hit OK on that. And we're going to hit OK again. So we added a label for one of the points deep within this CodeSet style of this corridor section. This is getting pretty far in, but you'll see in a second. Hit OK. It'll add one label to all the crowns, which just gives an elevation, which is kind of nice if you want to see that. You can get pretty surgical with labeling these section views quickly, and these are more automated for every view. In this case, I only did just the one section view. Okay. That's it on this one. We're going to go to the next section, 11.5, and apply some section view styles. Now that we've kind of studied the display and annotations of different sections, albeit the corridor sections which have more involved inside of them, and the regular sections and surfaces, but there are many similarities still between section views and profile views. Both have capability to be displayed on a grid. Both can apply vertical exaggeration to the y-axis. Both can use bands to add supplemental information that you need to see. Like in this case, we have a band on the bottom that just shows the offset on the left being the negative, which is standard in industry, and right being the positive, which is also standard, and bands on the right and left, which just show the elevation from low to high, obviously. So we'll go to exercise 11.5, applying section view styles now. Go once again to the lowest view. 8 plus 50. And it says click the lowest section view, which is the view. Just click the grid somewhere. Do that. And then click section view properties on the ribbon. Okay, right here. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. Click the view again. I click section view properties. So easy to miss between these two. I do it all the time since they're so close to each other too, and similarly sounding and named. And this is the dialog box you should see. In the information tab of section view properties, we can change the style to something else that looks more appealing to us, let's say. In this case, we're going to change it to design 10V major and minor. So it's a design, it's going to have a 10 vertical exaggeration of 10 to 1 and show major and minor stuff with padding, which is how the view has its outer boundaries. So there, the grid got tighter, things changed. It's stretched in the vertical. Simply just changing that style. You might use some grids like this to do a closer inspection to quickly see elevations and changes. There's a variety of reasons. You might be personal preference. One person likes this over another. One agency likes this appearance over another. And endless options to make it customize it the way you want, but it does take time at the beginning to customize, like anything. Let's continue on to click it here, the section, and we'll go to the properties and do the same thing. We can change the style here, as we've been doing many times by now. And I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to go to design 1V major and minor no padding. There we go. And it's not vertically exaggerated at all. It's as flat as it would be in the elevation, in the Y dimension, as it would be graphically. So this one excludes the style, excludes the grids and labels. Well, not yet, but the next one we're going to do, if we click it again, we'll change another style, and it's going to exclude the certain things on the grid. I think this is the one. Let's see. Design 1V no grid. Here it is. So that removes the entire grid. So you can see how much these views can change. Same with profile views. You could take that whole grid off just so you're showing graphically maybe. You can still label it and do everything. And it's offsets of the road. So you can see the variety here. I'll click it one more time, the view, and we'll go to properties in this case, and we'll change it to something else yet, to design 5V major only. And for a CAD manager, setting up these styles gets, for a company or whatever, it gets pretty surgical. You want to have them named, something that makes sense, cascades in order, something that is easy to recognize by most people. It's a challenge, no doubt, and to get a good palette of options for most scenarios. Not every scenario under the sun, that's too much to chase, but let's say 80 to 90% of your scenarios, you should just be able to click one and go, ideally at a company or a firm, or anyone really doing these views. We'll hit escape. We'll zoom out and pan north to the 3 sheets of section views. Now we got to explore different style appearances. Now we'll go to all these views that go onto sheets, and we can see here in our paper space we have the sheets somewhat set up too. Okay, go to one real quick. In paper space, this class doesn't delve too much into paper space drafting, but it's a huge part of AutoCAD. A lot of times you would have a sheet like this, and it's on a locked viewport. The viewport's already made. I'm going to unlock it here. I'm going to type in, or double mouse click center to do zoom extents. It's a little slow. There we go. The bummer with these is you got to keep refreshing to graphically refresh these. So I got to type in Regen. Actually, Regen is a better way to say it. And slowly get them a little zoomed in so they're manageable to visually see. And they're pretty close now. And you dial them to their final state. Let's say they're 1 inch equals 20 feet would be a pretty standard section view scale for a sheet. And we're starting to set up our final sheet here, which this class could use maybe a little more emphasis on drafting and setting up sheets, but we get it ready here. Let's just say it's looking pretty close, and I lock the viewport again. And you can further edit your viewport. And this one isn't ideal. I would have made it a polygon, but it is good enough for display purposes. And there we go. So that's just showing you the power of that. And we're going to go to step 7 on page 219. We're going to do some group properties of the entire group. I'm going to click one section view. As we did with the single view, we clicked one section view, we have different contextual ribbon options. In this case, we're going to go to view group properties. And we have group properties plot style edit, but we're going to go to the properties of the view group. And we have the section view group properties dialog box that opens up. And on the section views tab, we're going to click the style column in the first row. Sections is open. And we're going to go here to the style column. Let's get off this sections tab and go into the section views tab of the group properties. And we'll continue on to change the vertical exaggerations here. We're going to do all the views. So we're going to go to the style tab of the section views themselves. Expand these so you can see a little more. We're going to change the style to, in this case, road section type 2. Hit OK. And OK again to dismiss the section view group properties dialog box out. And with that click, we still have one of them selected. Obviously they changed. I'm going to leave it selected. See how they all changed at once. The style of the section views. I'm going to go to update group layout, which will shift how they're all conforming with each other. You can also do that with a right click. So I still have it selected. I can do right click, go to that, update section view layout, or you could go to this new icon up here and go to update group layout here as well. It wants us to pick that, and they'll shift how they're formatted. So they shifted and realigned a little bit. These can get tricky to get to be automated, but it is a worthwhile endeavor if you have similar looking sections. And the sections are rearranged, and the new layout, basically shifts them to a different amount of sheets, which it fits them onto 4. It just spreads them out to a different XY distance from each other and spacing in grid view, and it has them on 4 sheets now. It accommodates extra space and is now taken up by different section views. The 4th sheet basically is created by result of changing the section view style applied to the section view group. So we changed the style first, then we updated the let's go back to this, update the group layout. So we style first and then we change the group layout, and they all shifted. This takes a while to automate for a CAD manager or a designer for sure, but once it is, it can be really handy. We'll go into 11.6, applying section view bands. And similar to profile views, there's bands of information on the top, bottom, and both left and right sides of views to display additional information on a grid view possibly. Bands can also be useful, to enable you to display information graphically and textually. So there's 2 types. Section data bands, and this is mainly for labeling offset and elevation data at typical regular increments on a section view, formatted, formulaic, and section segment bands. So this type of band, you label the length and slope about individual segments, for example, because these are individual labels. They're created segment by segment, for example. They aren't evenly spaced necessarily. Depends across a band. And there's weeding you can do to apply to improve an overlap of labels or too many labels. Weeding takes out stuff. It takes out redundant extra data that maybe isn't needed for proper views. So I'm going to go to 11.6 now, which I'm in. We'll do the same start, which I like how they're doing this, keeping it consistent, to click the grid of the bottom section view, and we'll go to the section view properties here. Remember, not the section properties, the section view properties, easy to mix them up. And we have our dialog box. And let's go to bands, mess around with these for a minute. For band type, let's take a look here. We'll verify that section data is selected, which it is. So we're talking about section data and section segments. Here's where that comes into play. So section data. And let's go to verify the band style is design, e.g. existing grade elevation, which it is. In your settings, deep in Civil 3D, these will pick the default ones it starts with, but it's up to you to pick the special ones that you need, given each of your circumstances. Expand that. And we're going to go to the gap value in the band, and we're going to go to change that to 0 for now. There's no gap. The band will suck up right to the grid, is what that means. We'll scroll right. In the section 1 column, we're going to get the EG as the main section. This is what the band is populated with in data. We'll leave section 2 OK. We'll hit OK and the band gets added. It's taking data from the EG surface and applying it to this band on the bottom with no gap and of a certain potential to show just what you wanted on that particular band we just did. So with the section view selected still here, let's go back into section view properties. Oops, I went to section properties. See, did it again. So have the grid selected. Oop. A lot of these, it's easy to grab the wrong one in here. Section view properties. So we already have our band applied to this view, right, that we just did. We can turn off a couple of small things. We tell it which section we want the band to go into. And we got the band style. We only got one that grabs the EG. They work hand in hand, the style, the band type, and then the options within it. And we're going to uncheck the boxes and label start and end offset. And the columns will hit OK. We'll see that there is no longer simply a label at the beginning and end of the section offset on the right and left on the bottom. We'll get rid of this one and this one. That's all we did. Let's go back into the view again, section view properties. And let's add a band showing the depth of rock surface beneath the ground surface. So let's do section data for that. Let's do the style as rock depth in this case. Let's do add. Then let's do a gap of 0 so it sucks right in there. And let's uncheck the label at the beginning and end as well. And for section 1, in this case, we're going to say EG. In section 2, we're going to say rock. And that one's added. Now we're going to add one more band showing offset values. Doing this, we're going to go make sure it's section data. And we're going to go, the style is design offsets. We'll go to the add. We're not going to edit any styles here with these universal buttons. We're going to go add. And same on this one, gap of 0. We'll have these checked at the beginning and end. Before I say OK to apply all these, I'm going to just skip ahead one and just do this while I'm in here. And I'm going to go to save as band set. So you can save these bands much like you can save group labels on section views and profile views. And we're going to call this, and this can be quickly applied to any other section view you desire. this to say kind of what it does is half the goal of labeling something, right? So you can quickly remember it in the future when you don't come back to a project for years. And let's hit OK. Let's take a look at what we did. So we have an EG elevation band at certain intervals, which applies not to the gray line section view, but the EG elevation on the first one applies to the red dash line. That's what it's going to, right? And the rock depth is a subtraction from here to here in the style, which is pretty cool, I think. Shows the depth from existing ground to bedrock, or whatever that rock is, probably bedrock. And all these, so you can see the distance, which is pretty critical in this design. How much they can avoid going to bedrock is going to have huge implications on the cost of a road, for example. So that's a huge band set of necessity there. It's just showing the power of doing that. And we saved our band band set for these section views. So we're going to go to the label to the north. Let's just pick this one, this view. And this time I'm going to do a right click, which I haven't done yet, but remember, you got the ribbon, you have a lot of right click options if you pick the right noun, Civil 3D object, aka noun, or you could change certain things like style here in the properties. And we're not going to go into it, but you can access these section views deep in your tool space too. We'll maybe talk about that right now. Once again, they are buried, but they fall under alignments to begin with. You have to go to its parent alignment that they are associated with. They go as children under it. And profile views go with it too. So profiles, profile views, they're buried under sample line groups. I kind of don't like that. I wish they were one step up, but they all go in a order. And this one has the section views and section view groups, sample lines all within them. So they're all down here. For example, if we go to section view groups, that's the whole group. Here's our individual section views. Here they all are. Here's the three we're playing with right now, 850, 900. They're pretty buried, but they're in the tree. Anyway, I'm going to click the section view, right click, showing you the other method to get to it besides the ribbon and the tool space. Go to group properties there. In this case, I don't want to do it to the whole group. Just like the ribbon, I accidentally can go to the wrong one, of course. And I'm going to go to section view properties, not edit section view style, just properties. And we're back to our bands. So remember when we saved our last band with all that cool stuff on the bottom? Well, I'm just going to import it in, the one I made. We made this one. Hit OK. Quickly brings it into all the variables I needed. Hit OK again. It applies it to this view. Which actually, I did need to do one thing on that. I assumed too much, which the book does say to not do. You have to do a couple things. Let's go back to the section view properties. And I'm going to open it up. We do need to edit which section it's grabbing. It's not smart enough to say I know exactly which one you'd prefer. All the other stuff is fine. If there's multiple sections, you need to tell it which ones to access, depending. So when I did that, it should liven up. Not fully. If you have a mistake and you want it to look like this, see, just check the one that worked. So I'm going to do the same. Section view properties is good for troubleshooting anyway, if you don't have perfect styles. So we have to have this one, and rock is selected as 2. So we got EG, Jordan Court, EG rock, Jordan Court, Jordan Court. Cancel. So I had one further thing to do. These can get touchy like that, especially with a lot of different sections with data. There we go. So the import band sets do their job pretty well, but they don't know which sections to go to. You got to do that part yourself. We can do one more just for good measure. 925. We can go to properties this way once again. instead of the right click method, just to keep it fresh in your minds. And I'm going to import it. And let's see if I can remember this. And EG, and rock. I think I got it. We'll hit OK. And there we go. So let me hit escape here on this. Let's go back to our group sections at the top here. This, the sheets of section views. I'm just going to pick one of them once again. And we're going to go to the view group properties. Give it a second to open. And on the section views tab, so we're in it already because we were in it last, not the sections tab. Easy to miss that. We're going to change the band sets on all of them. So let's expand that in this column. Look for the ellipsis button here. I'm going to click import band set. So we're going to do it to all of them. We want to do the one we just made. No, not necessarily. They want us to do a different one called section sheets. We'll hit OK. We'll add that. It doesn't say edit anything further that I'm seeing, so let's just hit OK. And OK again to exit the section view group properties. It's going to change the bands on every view, which it did. And you can see, voila, the section views will need to be rearranged so they're not overlapping. So let's do that again. Say update group layout. Since one's still selected, I have my ribbon, my contextual ribbon going. Give it a second, they're updating. That's pretty much the end of this chapter. You can see they update more neatly and in a more surgical fashion, spaced apart. I'm going to go into file 7, applying group plot styles. And throughout this chapter, we've been working with different sheets of section views, which we have up to 4 now. They get plotted on one sheet with predefined sheet borders in this case. You know, it's a little bit curious what controls that behavior, and there is some style, of course, that does it in the background, as all Civil 3D things are. The arrangement of these multiple section views is done by a group plot style. So that's the key style here. A group plot style takes an assortment of settings to configure the layout of multiple section views, which we have going on here. This produces a group plot style. When section view groups are created, there's 2 placement options. So these are critical as well: production and draft. And when a section view group is created using the production placement method, for example, the layout of the section view is made to fit to individual sheets. So that's ideal for if you want to put them in a sheet. The size and shapes of the individual sheets, they come from a template DWT file of your selection, which you might have to your exact company standards, for example. When the draft placement option, which we're going to see in a second, is used, the section views are laid out as a single group and aren't bound within a given area. So they can go past an area, for example. So one last function of group plot styles on page 223 as we get into it is to overlay a grid on the sections. So this approach to sheet creation, the section views don't typically have their own grid, but they're superimposed on a grid that covers, say, an entire sheet. That's something new I haven't done a lot on the job, which I'm not seeing we're going to do in its entirety here, but let's give this example a go on 224. Usually when I do section views on the job, or I have an industry, depending on different agencies, federal highways, or wherever, they have their different things they like, but they generally look somewhat like this. They cascade in an orderly fashion, sometimes top to bottom. They generally go from left to right. Sometimes they go from bottom to top in the columns, as they do here. And they generally have their own little worlds, their own grids, their own area on their own station, and offsets and elevations with their own styles making inside of them. That's generally how they look to a degree. I usually don't have a full grid that they all just plop on as the end of that on 223 dimension. So I'm going to click one of the section views displayed on one of these three sheets to start this, kick this party off, and I'm going to click the view group properties. In the section views tab, which is right here, the first row and the group plot style column. Let's see, there we go. And we can change this quickly. Let's select left to right, top down, for example. Left to right, top down, which I kind of prefer. That's how we read books, right? At least in English language. Left to right, top down. Not Japanese, not Arabic, but let's hit OK. And let's just take a look at what that did. They should flip their direction from top down. See? The 0 here, which I had selected, started at the top, or 50 down. So it arranged them in the Y dimension, Y direction, flipped them. Let's keep that clicked, and we'll go back where we were to the view group properties. This time, we're going to change something slightly different. We're going to go to the group plot style like I just did. We're going to go bottom up, left to right with grid. Hit OK. Before we leave this, let's change the style of all of them at once in one fell swoop to a different style of section view appearance. And let's change it to design 1V no grid. Okay. Hit OK again. And this puts, I guess we do this, a grid on everything, which I've never done this. You could. You totally could make it work this way. Some places would do this, some wouldn't. Let's go back to them again. I still have that one selected down here. View group properties. I just want to see what it looked like. We're going to change into the bands. And the band set column, make sure I'm on the right one. Yep, right here. On the section data, listed in the section view group here, we'll grab it and delete it. I'm going to click OK to take that band out, and click OK again. Let's take a look. It's kind of hard to see with all this going on. It added bands, or took the bands out on the bottom that I had made. The grids are in here, they're in a different arrangement. Basically with this configuration, the section views are superimposed right on this grid, which corresponds to these big rectangle sheets. And because the grid's already there, the section view styles don't show the individual grids. They're basically off because it's superimposed on top of them in general. These styles also have their own offset labels across the bottom. So just a little different. I still have one of the section views selected. If you don't, select one and update group layout. So it did suck up to the bottom. The grid went where it's supposed to. See that? And to the left and to the right. To the right it didn't end. It keeps going. But to the left it truncated, and to the bottom, to the south, it truncated too. So that's it on this example. I wouldn't necessarily do section views like this, but it's showing you all the cadre of options, the many options you have. We're going to go into the final area, creating section view labels, and so far in this chapter we've seen many different annotations, right? Many are label sets that apply to sections, the cuts. Some are to corridor sections using CodeSet styles that talk to the subassembly that makes up the corridor section, okay? Through this here and our assembly and subassemblies, they talk all the coding inside of it. We've learned about bands and labels on the section views, how to edit those. But there's some labels attached to objects that are projected onto section views, like this rock surface was projected later on a surface view. We put labels on that. There's one limitation of those labels we learned about. They're all connected to something, and they get their information and location from other objects. So there's options here, like on profile views, for example. We just need a basic all-purpose kind of label that can be used to convey offset elevation in a section view. So just a one-time use, single, standalone label to do really specific purposes for unique objects of any desire. If that's a long-winded explanation, I don't know what it is, but that's what they are, section view labels. And they can attach to the section view itself. They're only on it one section view at a time. That's their little world. And they can be placed anywhere on this section view, right here, say like just this one, and used to basically label anything, any miscellaneous thing else you could think of. And same with offset labels and stuff for alignments. They are just miscellaneous labels that really can do the rest of the heavy lifting of dynamic labeling. So let's zoom back into this 1 second and make sure I'm the right one. My drawing isn't set up right away to be zoomed into the correct area, but it says the first section view on the Jordan Court where the road is widened to accommodate a turn lane. So I believe this one will be fine. I'm pretty sure it's 50. It'd be just easier if they said go to this station, but we're going to go, instead of clicking the section view to get the contextual ribbon with labels and stuff, we're going to go that way I said before, annotate, and we're going to open this whole dialog box, which I prefer to keep it permanent, and we'll go to section views, and we're going to, in this case, we have three options: a grade label, an offset elevation label, and projection label. This time we're going to do offset elevation. For the offset elevation style, we're going to make sure it is offset over elevation, which it is, and the marker we're going to leave as basic. We're going to hit add now. We're going to click just one of the grid lines in the section view to say this is the view we want to label on. And let's pick an endpoint. How about right here on this top back of curb? Let's pick the flow line here. We got two views. Doesn't matter if you get these perfect. Hit escape. They're in their default initial state. I want to pick this one here. I'm going to pull it with this grip on the square to its drag state. Okay. There we go. And the same with this flow line. It basically just shows the offset, the left or right of the center line with respect to the alignment, and the elevation with respect to just elevation on the view. So these labels are only independent just to this view, none other. They can do custom stuff. I hit escape to have nothing selected in my selection set now. So at that moment, let's click one of the newly dragged labels, and we already moved it, right? So I still have we moved them with the square grip, which I showed. We have other grips that I've seen in other videos to move the origin of the label. The key one is the diamond shaped one on the bottom. This is controlling its offset and elevation, which gives its populates its numbers there. And we have the label selected. We're going to click Edit Label Text, the contextual ribbon here. We have the Text Component Editor dialog box right here. It wants us, I do this all the time on the job, to do really custom labeling, but leave things dynamic that are important, especially offset elevation. Don't blow it up, but add what you need to it. In this case, we'll add some custom text in front of the manicured offset, all the things I want to keep dynamic, and we'll hit OK just to show I added some text to customize this label to my needs, but I still kept it dynamic within it for the offset and elevation. That's something I do all the time on the job that is really handy. You get pretty surgical with it. And now that I have this one created, I could reuse this just by copying it. I'm going to type in the copy command, and I'm just going to copy this one label that I had selected to somewhere else, for example, and that's another way so I don't have to do that again, and these stay unique to that view. Copy it again. Go slower this time. Copy. It's interesting. If I go here, it's kind of just dead. It's off the section view, but it's still is with respect to this section view. So it's still with respect just to this section view, even though I moved it way off of it. It shows a station offset like out in space, but it's with respect to this XY. So you're not going to do that. You would start adding a label to this view in and with of itself. So if I click on this label, for example, an offset elevation label, properties, it'll say which view it's going to right here, and you can change which section it's pulling data from with respect to it, and you can even change its style here. So that is the end of chapter 11.